Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Friday Night Comics. I apologize for my lateness. I had to play with the cat real quick and feed him. He does not like his food, so that became an issue. But thank you all for waiting, and we're going to talk some comic news and pop culture news. Mostly pop culture tonight, so a few things comic book related, of course. First things first, hi everybody. I see Ryan, how you doing? BG, Shady, Okie Native, Della Hayes, Rotten Corpse, Shroom. TOS, I saw you were live earlier. Hope it went well. No One Nowhere. Hi, Angela. Evolved Potato, Emphazer. Sorry, I'm never getting that one right. I'm bad at names. And God of Cheese. Hey, Tyler. Hey, Simic. Hey, James. How's everybody doing tonight? Beautiful Friday night out here in the land of astronauts, serial killers, and presidents. So we got quite a few articles to go through today, some of which should be pretty interesting. Hey, Jim, how you doing? So let's dive right in here. Only 20 minutes till they say if I'll be in lockdown another day. Oh, that sucks. Good luck, man. Good luck. Hope it works out. All right. So it's been kind of a crazy week with pop culture. And we're going to start with Woke Tolkien. This is a new article from Bleeding Fool. We got transgenderism, anti-racism, and queerness in Lord of the Rings. So let's see what we've got here. Oh, by the way, the thumbnail for today's video, or live stream, whatever, is from Heroes Return. It's Captain America versus Hyperion. It's the final part of the Heroes Reborn miniseries where the Squadron Supreme exists, but the Avengers do not. And I thought that scene was pretty fun and make a cool thumbnail. And I just finished the review on it, so that should be up in a few days. So that's what that's from, if anybody was wondering. The second Tolkien Society seminar of 2021 will be held online. Okay, on Saturday the 3rd and Sunday the 4th of July 2021, virtually. The organization dedicated to all things J.R.R. Tolkien will be live streaming the event on their YouTube channel this weekend. The summer seminar is a brief academic conference on topics related to Tolkien, the British scholar and author of Lord of the Rings. Not surprisingly, this year's seminar has a decidedly woke turn, with a presentation of many presentations on what the presenters perceive as LGBT themes and anti-racism, which more closely appears to adhere to neophyte academic movement inspired by Marxist critical race theory. Now, we've kind of talked about this before with some of the other articles, but I thought this might be worth going over again for people that missed that or just didn't quite know how insane this is getting. The Tolkien Society asked academics and others to submit papers for presentation at the seminar, emphasizing the topic of diversity and representation in particular. While interest in the topic of diversity has steadily grown within Tolkien research, it is now receiving more critical attention than ever before, spurred by recent interpretations of Tolkien's creations and the cast list of the upcoming Amazon show Lord of the Rings. It is critical we discuss the theme of diversity in relation to Tolkien, the Society said. Now, they seem to be... This is weird because they're emphasizing the topic of diversity and representation in particular, but it sounds more like they're reading into things. So if it wasn't his intention, I'm not sure where you're getting a lot of this from, although that face is haunting. Oh my God. Yeah. I think they all just saw the movies and saw Peter Jackson's longing looks between Samwise and Frodo. Representation is now more important than ever, and Tolkien's efforts to represent or ignore particular characteristics requires further examination, the prompt insisted. Additionally, how a character's identity shapes and influences its place within Tolkien's secondary world still requires greater attention. This seminar aims to explore the many possible applications of diversity within Tolkien's work, his adaptations, and his readership. Samwise Frodo. Samwise Frodo. Sorry, this is a cheap shot, but it was funny. When the society asked for papers about diversity, the presenters did not disappoint, as Tyler O'Neill of PJ Media points out. Leading off the discussion on Saturday will be Cordelia Logsden, read into that what you will, with Gondor in Transition, a brief introduction to transgender realities in Lord of the Rings. Yes, the first speaker will discuss transgender realities in Lord of the Rings. Tolkien, an Orthodox Roman Catholic, would have been extremely surprised to discover that his work included transgender realities. Deconstructionists claim that a text has no meaning except what a reader decides, so LGBT activists can read all sorts of sexual mumbo-jumbo into Lord of the Rings. Other speakers will address the invisible other, Tolkien's dwarf women and feminine lack, projecting the Indian myth, culture, and history onto Tolkien's world. Well, why do you have to project that on? Okay. The Losoth, indigeneity, identity, and anti-racism. And then we get definition of what anti-racism is. I think we're all kind of aware of that at this point. Yet, along with the discussion of transgender realities, the seminar involves not one, not two, but 3 papers with queer in the title. Something Mighty Queer, Destabilizing Cis-Hetero Autonormativity in the Works of Tolkien. Stop making up words. Queer, Atheists, Agnostics, and Animists, oh my. Pardoning Saruman, the Queer in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. One might say that the Tolkien Society is queering the works of John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, from Lord of the Rings to The Hobbit to the Silmarillion. Talk about the death of the author. Yeah. This is the type of crap that happens in colleges, and it's really obnoxious. They just find stuff that isn't there and demand that it's there, whether you want to believe it or not. Sort of like most things on Tumblr. Of course, Tolkien passed away in 1973, and his son Christopher Tolkien passed away last year, rather. Perhaps the Tolkien Society is acting on the assumption that no one will be able to speak on behalf of J.R.R. Tolkien to express what would certainly have been his utter disgust at having his works twisted to support the LGBT agenda. Wokeness ruins everything. Well, that's just a fact. It would appear that a dark power has already overtaken this noble endeavor and is inspiring participants to twist a devout Catholic's epic saga of heroism and hope against all odds to their own progressive values and identity politics. What a shame. Yeah, you're not wrong here, author guy. Jameson Ashley. Man, that's haunting. It's pretty clear what they're doing, but if you want to see how this travesty is going to play out, it will be on their YouTube channel. Let's see if I can open it from an archive here. And I encourage people to see where they're going with this, because this is the official Tolkien Society's YouTube nonsense. And they've only got 3,000 subscribers, but they're getting a fair amount of views here for being that size. And it's pretty interesting that they're willing to start digging in to find things that aren't there, that were never intended to be there. But that's never stopped an academic. They have to get their papers out there somehow. And their current target is Tolkien. And part of it is probably because he was a devout Catholic. And partly because a lot of his work was so heavily influenced by European myth and legend and history. So the destruction of Tolkien continues. It's not just Amazon and their new woke show. They're actually trying to create a bunch of paper trails so that they can say how woke Tolkien is. And it is devastating to what they're actually doing. Oh, thank you very much, Okie Native, for the donation. According to a certain well-known painted house in a swamp, this should buy an entire 4th of July meal for 4 people. Um, well, I'm pretty fat, so it'll just be me and probably the cat. But thank you. And thank you, Evolved Potato. I much prefer the Society of Tolkien to the Tolkien Society. Yes, they are separate groups. The first one isn't a shitty cover for forcing politics onto people. Yeah, I'd recommend the Society for Tolkien right now because of what's going on. Hey, Becca. Yeah, Gandalf the Grey is coded for trans now because he became Gandalf the White. Yeah, there's all sorts of goofy shit. I don't know if you're making a joke there, James, but I've actually seen that argument. It's pretty gross what's going on here, how they have to force that stuff in. Just write your own damn fantasy. There's plenty of people out there that are writing fantasy works for gay and transgender people and like black futurists, stuff like that. What do they call that? The Afrofuturism. That's a whole subgenre of writing. You don't have to read stuff into other works to have something that is quote quoted for you. There's plenty of people out there writing stuff out there, but this is just another technique to subvert and try and take over something that was never intended to be there. Hey Viking, how you doing, man? So that's just the latest from the Tolkien people. All right, let's find a good one next. I got a couple of shorter ones here that might be fun to get out of the way because they're rather disturbing. All right, next up on the docket, this is from Jezebel by way of MSN. In a $2 million settlement, James Franco says his alleged sexual exploitation victims raised important issues. You think sexual exploitation may be an important issue? Wow, bold stance there, James. James Franco plans to pay out $2.2 million to settle a lawsuit in which former students of his short-lived acting program accused him of putting them in gratuitous and explicit sexual situations on camera. Franco denied the accusations against him for years, but according to new settlement filings obtained by Deadline, he, totally gets where they're coming from. From Deadline, emphasis was put here by Jezebel. While defendants continue to deny allegations of the complaint, they acknowledge that the plaintiffs have raised important issues, and all parties strongly believe that it is now a critical time to focus on addressing the mistreatment of women in Hollywood. The parties have all agreed to state, okay, you could have just said they continued. All agree on the need to make sure that no one in the entertainment industry, regardless of race, religion, disability, ethnicity, background, gender, or sexual orientation, faces discrimination, harassment, or prejudice of any kind. Important issues, like not allegedly forcibly removing women's clothing on camera. In February, a tentative settlement was reached in a 2019 lawsuit that alleged Franco sought to create a pipeline of young women who were subjected to his personal and professional sexual exploitation in the name of education. Yeah, who doesn't want that? It's like having your own private finishing school for saucy ladies. Maybe I'm alone on that one. The alleged incidents occurred in 2017 when Franco was teaching a masterclass on sex scenes at Studio 4. How could that end up in a lawsuit? What are you, dumb, Franco? Come on, man. You're smarter than this. A now defunct acting and film school located in New York and Los Angeles, founded by Franco himself. The suit also accused Franco of demanding actors simulate sex scenes with him, removing protective coverings from actors' genitalia, and pressuring students to sign away their rights to the video recording of such acts. Students said they were led to believe that compliance with Franco's CADIC program could lead to a role in one of Franco's future films. So you did it for the film experience and possible roles. That makes you kind of a whore. But it also doesn't make it exploitation or harassment if you did it willingly, thinking you were getting something out of it. It just makes you kind of a whore. And you signed up for a class with an actor that was to simulate sex scenes. What did you think was it? Oh my God, use your brains, you morons. Sarah Tither Kaplan and Tony Gull, the former Studio 4 students who initially filed the suit, are among those receiving financial compensation. And from what I just read, I don't think they should. This after Franco's lawyers happily painted the two as attention-hungry women eager to jump on the pound me too bandwagon. But sure, Franco and his associates absolutely appreciate the seriousness of sexual exploitation in Hollywood. It was a class on sex scenes. Seriously, you're dumb. If this mealy mouth, fake deep platitude about women in Hollywood is what it takes to get money into the pockets of the former students impacted by this mess, so be it. But who in their right mind would actually buy this? It's just another example of the self-proclaimed enlightened man encouraging women to come forward just as long as the allegations aren't against them. But a combination of conditional allyship and social justice buzzwords is not the same as remorse. Franco's statement achieves little beyond demonstrating the power of a moderately competent public relations team. What remorse? They signed up for a class on sex scenes with him in hopes of getting a movie role. This is dumb. And it kind of makes me sad that he had to pay this because they knew what they were getting into. A video about sex scenes, and you always end up signing waivers for this stuff. So that shouldn't have been surprising either, because he's going to use that as promotional material or spank material or whatever. You always end up signing film releases. So if you don't want to do it and you're uncomfortable with it, don't take a class like that. Just drop out of the class. You don't have to go. Oh my God, these people are stupid. What did you think was going to happen? Use your critical thinking skills, people, from point A to point B, and then it's probably going to lead to point C. That seems like a logical conclusion to me, but apparently not so much. Oh, I'm sorry, Rotten Corpse. I got a little distracted here. Not good at multitasking. Thank you for the donation. To go toward whatever you need or want. Oh, thank you. It'll probably be for treats for Flippington. Hey, Rancy Monkey, how you doing, man? Hey, Camel. Hey, Johnny. My whoredom didn't work out. To the courthouse. Yeah, pretty much. It's pisses me off. Like, look, the guy's a sleazebag. Yeah, sure, whatever. But you signed up for a class on sex scenes, and you're shocked that you wanted to simulate sex scenes, and then wanted to look at your boobies and your no-nos? What'd you think was going to happen, you fucking halfwit? He's famous. That means he's okay. I hate people. All right, speaking of sex pests, that's so Raven star Kyle Massey charged for allegedly sending explicit content to minor. This is from Entertainment Tonight. This is from a couple days ago. This guy's been in trouble previously for various other things, as I recall. But now Kyle Massey is being charged with sending explicit content to a minor. The 29-year-old actor, known for his role in That's So Raven, is facing one count of immoral communication with a minor, according to multiple reports. The court documents were filed on June 14th in King County, Washington. ET has reached out to Massey's rep for comment. ET previously reported in 2019 that Massey was sued by a 13-year-old girl for intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligence per se, harmful matter sent with intent to seduction of a minor, negligence per se, attempting to commit a lewd act with a minor, and negligence per se, annoying or molesting a minor. That's messed up. The felony charges from the same accusations detailed in that lawsuit, according to People. The outlet notes that Massey failed to show for his arraignment on Monday. Look, if you're charged with something like this, don't fail to show up for your arraignment, idiot. At the time, Massey denied allegations leveled against him, saying in a statement released to ET via his attorney Lee Hutton, no child should ever be exposed to sexually explicit materials, and I unequivocally and categorically deny any alleged misconduct. Oops, too far. The actor added that he retained the services of his attorney, Hutton, to, quote, guide my family and me through the process, and I ask my fans and the general public not to jump to conclusions based on the allegations alone, but reserve judgment for the whole story comes to light until the whole story comes to light, proving these allegations baseless. The teenage plaintiff, who remains anonymous in the court documents, claimed that she and her mom met Massey in 2009 when she was just 4. She said Massey maintained contact with her over the following years. That's not creepy. Why are you in communication with a 4-year-old? That's weird. You meet a fan, you don't like, hey, why don't you give me your phone number there, fan? No, leave your fans alone because they're probably weirdos too. You just have to assume that everybody you meet's a weirdo now. The lawsuit claimed that Massey contacted the girl's mother to invite the girl to stay with him and his girlfriend in Los Angeles so he could help her find an agent. After that, the girl alleged that Massey started to send her sexually explicit texts, images, and videos. Oh, I'm so shocked. The lawsuit stated that the girl was seeking damages of at least $1.5 million. This guy doesn't do, like, major work. He doesn't have that kind of money. So that does sound kind of like a grift, but if he did it, he's an idiot. Meanwhile, in the video shared this week, Massey's mother, Angel, spoke out about his felony charge, claiming that the family was attempting to extort them. She noted that the news was old and claimed he respectfully told the family that they would take our chances with the justice system. We did that in California, and she took the same accusations, same news to Seattle, and we're doing the same thing. So whether he did this or not, I don't know, but look, you have to assume if you're a celebrity that people that are trying to stay in contact with you are probably trying to get something out of you. That's how Hollywood works. People grift each other. Then they ride coattails. So maybe he couldn't get her an agent, and this was her way of saying, give me some money. Or maybe he's a pervert who's grooming a kid. Either way, I don't know. But it's pretty suspicious. How many Hollywood perverts have we heard of? So, yeah, he's one of those Disney-type kids, so you got to kind of keep an eye on them. They all have a lot of major issues. So we'll see how that one plays out. I don't know what's real and what's not, but he's been sued for this before, so the criminal charges are just kind of new. You can only reliably determine if a person is weird if they don't have a love dungeon. Yeah, anybody without a sex dungeon or a love den, if you don't have one of those, you need to get one because otherwise, kind of weird. Yeah, going for the civil case first is always a cause for taking a step back to look at it critically. Exactly, Oki. I am always a little nervous when I see somebody going for the civil case first. Are you in Hollywood? Then, if yes, then you're a pervert. Yeah, pretty much. There's a lot of weirdos in Hollywood. Sorry. All right. Let's see what we got on deck here. All right, let's talk some Spider-Man, huh? How about some Spider-Man? You guys like Spider-Man? Oh, yeah, Zombie, you're not wrong. Love Den isn't complete without a sex swing. That's a fact. And every love den should have some ropes. All right. This is from Super Jump magazine. And there we've got Miles Morales, fake Spider-Man. This Spider-Man villain lives among us. Spider-Man Miles Morales explores environmental racism and its impact. Is he going to punch it? I bet he punches it. New York City shines with its brightly colored ads and not one but 2 Spider-Mans. One real and one fake. As Miles Morales, fake Spider-Man, finds his place as a hero, a new enemy steps on the scene. It's an enemy that could turn your community into an unlivable space, destroying your health, shave years off your life. The name of this enemy is Roxxon Energy. Ooh, big energy, evil. If you're a fan of the Marvel Universe, you know Roxxon is bad news. Yeah, it's their stereotypical big evil company. Big looming corporate bad guy that always does all sorts of bad things. It's been that way for decades in Marvel. It's just the generic super bad guy. This multinational gas and oil company continues to crawl back into the comic book pages, shows, and now in games as an unbeatable enemy. That's not true. They've been beaten several times. While Roxxon is a thing of fiction, I found it represented an actual threat that lives among us. No. It represents It represented the thousands of companies and harmful practices today that continue to affect the health of millions, specifically communities of color. It's an enemy that even Spider-Man can't beat. Not alone, at least. We gotta band together to help Spider-Man fight this villain. What is environmental racism? Toxic soil, unclean water, exposure to high levels of pollution. These are but a few of the long list of environmental hazards that disproportionately affect Black, Latino, Indigenous, and other communities of color. While low-income communities are also significantly affected, an assessment conducted by the Environmental Protection Agency in 2018 found that non-white Americans are subjected to higher levels of air pollution than white Americans, regardless of their income level. This is an undeniable relationship between these hazards and race. That was their emphasis, not mine. I don't know if I trust that. Look, a lot of people just live in poor areas, and poor areas are shitty usually. That's why they're poor areas. Power stations, gas pipelines, disproportionate harm after a natural disaster. I don't know what that means. Major highways, what? And more are not affecting these communities by coincidence. They exist through oppressive policies and practices that target and affect individuals and communities of color. No, it's just poor people. These are all places. If you live by a major highway, you probably live in a slightly less nice place than the gated community where Stately Wayne Manor would be located. Power stations, I've seen those in relatively nice areas. They're just kind of hidden away with like some shrubbery and stuff. Gas pipelines, I don't even know where the gas pipelines are. Who tracks that shit? This seems a little, I don't know, stupid. These environmental hazards negatively affect the quality of life for those who live around them. No duh. Exposure to high levels of pollution over the years has led to, oh my God, this is taking a long time to get to the point. Environmental injustice takes shape in many forms. Of course, we got to go to Flint, Michigan, West Harlem Waste Facility, in Louisiana, an 85-mile stretch of oil refineries. Yeah, you live in Louisiana. It's big oil, petrochemical plants are all over down there. Same with like Texas. And I don't see 3 Mile Island mentioned on here. Or the giant coal fire under Centralia, Pennsylvania, where the entire town had to be evacuated and like 3 people live. So, yeah, it's just more evil white guy oppressing. The Roxxon threat. Roxxon has always been present in the Spider-Man games, usually as an advertisement or logo splashed on a gas station. Now Roxxon takes form in the shape of an underground lab, heavily armed security who will protect Roxxon's investments. Roxxon has recently developed New Form, a source of clean energy that will revolutionize New York City. One canister of New Form promises power each neighborhood with clean, safe energy for the next 500 years. You will find New Form reactors scattered across the city, mostly tucked away underground, save for one of Roxxon's facilities in Harlem. Despite the cheery promise that New Form can promise, despite the cheery promise of what New Form can promise, nice sentence there. You went to college. The game immediately sets the tone that Roxxon is a company that cares less about people and more about profits. Yeah, they're villains. Duh. At a rally held by Rio Morales, Miles' mother, she shares both the community and local news the incredible loss of the Harlem community faced when Roxxon moved in. They displaced shop's livelihood to make room for Roxxon's plaza. Oh my God, you mean to tell me that gentrification is going on in a Marvel comic? I know, I am shocked. Oh, it's horrifying. Oh, then we get into the significance of Harlem, which isn't like it is in the comics and games. It's changed a lot in the last 30 years. So yeah, this is just going into more and more of like you see, we got racial equality in America. It's not just about that. This is the fight against gentrification. Now, look, I understand that when things get nicer, some people can't afford to live there, and that's tragic. But there's always going to be poor people. Not everybody's going to have the same thing. There will always be poorer neighborhoods and richer neighborhoods. This is just people whining because they can whine. And they need to stop and get over things, because life's hard enough without you having to create all these nonsense things that don't really accomplish anything. You're just complaining. I thought New York would be powered by a giant arc reactor in Marvel by now. Yeah, you'd think so, but here we are. Wait, so help out POC SpiderMan will be beaten by a non-woke company? Yeah, pretty much. And they got to complain about it because big companies are bad, and that's the way it has to be. Oh, Captain Planet reboot. Oh, man, the lecture would be off the charts. If your neighborhood is being gentrified, hold out for prices to go up, sell, move to someplace nice off the profits. Yeah, that makes too much sense, Random. Nope, we got to complain that people are lifting things up out of poverty. A lot of people don't mind the gentrification because their property values go up. But if you're renting, you may have to move. And you know what? It sucks being poor. I don't know what to tell you. There's always going to be poor people. You don't have to like it. It's just the way of the world. The world's complicated, and it kind of sucks a lot of times. Suck it up, Nancy. Work harder, get some job skills. I don't know what to tell you. But life's a difficult thing to deal with. You got to start living in the real world, whether you like it or not. Why would we want a nice area? Not like we could solve pollution problems through gentrification. Yeah, Ryan, that double standard is, what do they call that? A hate fact. And your hate facts have no place here, mister. All right, let's get to the next one. Ready for drag queen versions of classic sitcoms like The Brady Bunch? This is from Bleeding Fool. Don't make the soy face. Yikes. The new Alice is something. A tweet from World of Wonder here. Get ready for the RuPaul's Drag Race and Brady Bunch crossover, Dragging the Classics, The Brady Bunch. Dragging the Classics, The Brady Bunch will debut on Paramount Plus beginning Wednesday in what is expected to be the first in a planned series that will revisit classic sitcoms with casts of vamping drag queens, according to a Variety report. The Paramount show is a mashup of two Viacom CBS-owned shows, The Brady Bunch and VH1's RuPaul Drag Race, with drag performers joining original cast members in a retelling of the Season 2 episode, Will the Real Jan Brady Please Stand Up? Marsha Brady will be played by drag queen Shia Kalu, and Carol Brady will be played by Drag Race Season 6 winner Bianca Del Rio. Greg Brady and Jan Brady will be played by Ben De La Creme and Kyle Sonequi Love, respectively, with RuPaul expected to make an appearance as well. According to Variety, the ensemble is on the lookout for more classic sitcoms to remake as drag shows. The Golden Girls, Happy Days, Bewitched, Who's the Boss, Laverne and Shirley, Married with Children, Different Strokes, The Nanny, and Designing Women are among the other TV shows citing in a cast interview. I'm not sure who this is for, but since most drag shows are insufferable, this is definitely not for me. I agree with the author. But look at these shows that they're doing. The Golden Girls, that's an interesting choice. Happy Days, I kind of expect that. Bewitched, yeah, that too. Who's the Boss is a weird choice. Laverne and Shirley, there's a joke in there about already, but no, not saying it. Married with Children, kind of expected that. Different Strokes, that's kind of interesting because there's like 3 kids in that. The Nanny, why would anyone want to redo The Nanny? Ooh. And Designing Women kind of makes sense. But this is going to be a horror show. These are children. There are 6 kids on this show, and they're all going to be played by adult drag queens. That does a lot to get rid of that pedophilic image that things like Desmond is Amazing may have created with doing the drag show. That makes all sorts of horrific imagery in your head about people pretending they're children. Yeah, I don't even want to know where this is going. I am not watching this. That'll give me nightmares. I have real bad calorophobia, so I'm not a fan of clowns, and people in heavy makeup tend to do that. So drag princesses, yeah. Oh my god. Wait till they hit Disney with this crap. Can you imagine the remake of I don't know, Cinderella or Little Mermaid with drag race cast? I don't even want to know what Sebastian would look like. No Good Times? Right? Yeah, where's Good Times? Yeah, I don't get this. I just think this is weird. Oh, Rodline asked about the Captain America shit show. I looked at the first issue of the United States of Captain America at the comic shop yesterday, or day ago, whatever. It was a little bit ago. And wow, that was total fucking garbage. Somebody stole Cap's shield and they're dressed in a costume similar to his, and he goes out to look for it with the help of the Falcon, and Bucky and U.S. Agent are going to join him later. But they end up near this railroad, and this homeless kid has a little costume that he kind of uses, and it turns out, of course, he's gay. The story was unbelievably anti-American. It talks in the first couple pages about how Captain America has given up on the American dream because it's just a fantasy or something like that. And I was incredibly enraged by that. I don't care about the gay kid. That's just stupid and lazy pandering. But the anti-American sentiment in the first couple pages of a Captain America comic, that Marvel really hates this country, from what I can tell. They've done nothing but destroy this character for years now, from making him a Nazi sympathizer / Hydra agent to being under the writing of Ta-Nehisi Coates and all the disaster that was, to now this, where he's giving up on the American dream. Yeah, that's repulsive. Marvel's just an awful company. And there's some children outside screaming. I don't know what about. Nah, not my monkey, not my circus. Little Mermaid is going to have Caribbean slaves. Fun times. TV show Chad, a 40-year-old woman unironically playing a 15-year-old boy. I saw that thing for that. We read an article about it on Monkey in the Morning. I think it was there. And oh my god, that looks terrifying. It looks like one of those shows, like a Mad TV sketch with Stuart. Hi, I'm Stuart. Where a grown adult playing a kid. Those are weird and kind of creepy. Yeah, you're not wrong, Rod. It's some messed up stuff. All right, let's talk about how Snake Eyes is getting screwed. This is from Bleeding Fool. Creator Larry Hama says Snake Eyes should have been Asian. Well, he wasn't, so he's not. So shut the fuck up, Larry. You're just trying to suck up to your base now. Empire Magazine's written all about the new movie spotlighting Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe. And along the way, Hama comes up in dialogue, and what they say about him is pretty strange. But first, if the following is correct, the titular hero's racial background has been changed. Yeah, we know this from the movie, from the trailers. Now along comes Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins, which promises to look beneath the mask and explore what made him the man we know in the fighting force. With Crazy Rich Asians and Last Christmas actor Harry Golding inheriting the mantle. The new film has its latest trailer online, see below. Empire went on a one-man mission to track down Snake Eyes producer. I don't care. Yes, Golding is of Asian descent, Malaysia, making this another example of race swapping for the sake of inclusivity that supposedly was never there to begin with. Now here's the part referencing Hama himself. It's the first time we've explored it. Larry Hama, the creator of Snake Eyes, he's not the creator of Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes existed in the toy line. Hama kind of created the background for Snake Eyes. So that's a little misleading. Is in on many of the decisions, says Bonaventura. Snake in the comic is blonde-haired and blue-eyed. We asked him why he made him that way. He said he didn't really know. So we asked if he cared if he's dark-haired and Asian here. Probably should have done that in the beginning. We try to give a little bit of an explanation. His character's journey is that he had a life of bad luck. That's the simplistic way of saying that's how he got to be Snake Eyes. And then you watch it, he struggles with that and makes bad decisions in the movie, which I think is ballsy, and hopefully the audience is going to like it. Some people might wish it were cheerier, but others are going to get into the fact that we went gritty. First of all, this guy's Malaysian, and he's learning like Japanese assassin skills, so that's a little weird. You think the Asians don't recognize that he's Malaysian? Do all Asians look alike to you guys? But the reason that Snake Eyes was white, if you actually read his origin stories in the Marvel Comics issues 26 and 27 from Marvel, from the 1984 series, it's explained that he was orphaned when he was in Vietnam, but he was trained as a soldier, as an assassin, and he was an outsider. And that was actually part of his background, is that he didn't fit in with everybody else training to be an assassin. And he wears the mask because his face is all jacked up from a helicopter accident when he saves Scarlett's life. So they're just changing everything. Like a deep character arc there, they're just dropping all of that because why? Why bother keeping something that's worked really well for a long time and has made him one of the most popular characters in G.I. Joe? Just to lazily race swap him. Okay. I'm not surprised at all, the author goes on. That's the whole problem with modern entertainment, and obviously not limited to Batman. Turning everything gritty along with dark. You don't have to darken the vision in order to depict a character making mistakes. True. But how strange indeed to learn Hama couldn't explain why he developed Snake Eyes as a white Caucasian when the G.I. Joe was launched as a comic revised toy line in 1982. If I were in charge, I'd just say it's not a crime to be white and no big deal if you've got a white man or woman practicing martial arts. Let's consider Batman was the one of the earliest white superheroes depicted as a martial arts practitioner. Ditto Daredevil, and undoubtedly any and all SJWs who decided being a martial artist is cultural appropriation, but who damned Bob Kane, Bill Finger, Stan Lee, and Bill Everett as illegally appropriating the skills years before. And look how Hama seems to have decided that making Snake Eyes white/Caucasian was a mistake in the first place. Regrettable if he didn't have the courage to defend his past work, likely due to his knee-jerk liberal politics. If Asian cast members are needed, all they had to do was create some more of the hero's team. There's one more thing here I'd like to comment upon. Quote, if you're a fan of Joe series/movies, you like the characters. If you're not a fan, it lets you into it. This is a movie about the, Era Chicago and Snake Eyes within it and why they are in turn in the world of Cobra and Joe. I've studied a lot of Steven Spielberg's movies, and I think one of the things he does is that I love what's called an ice cream cone movie. It starts very narrow and gets bigger, it gets wider, the way a cone does. We're starting with Snake and then coming in with Storm and them, and the Joes come in. It's expanding the world. There was once a time when Spielberg was a big deal, but he became too politically, ideologically driven post-September 11th, and that decidedly is why whatever impressive talents he brought to the table years before have worn off since. As for liking this movie, that's only if you take a merited approach to the screenplay and performance, and I'm not sure that the filmmakers are doing enough to convince that they got it packed in there, due to the hints and political correctness in this interview. The two G.I. Joe movies of the past decade never got anywhere, and this won't either if PC makes precedence over quality preparedness. Look, the first G.I. Joe movie, Rise of Cobra, was stupid. It was a kid's movie, fine, whatever, but it was still stupid. And the whole Wayne's brother was in there. Awful actor. Ruined that character, who was also race swapped, by the way. But the second movie with The Rock was much better. Now, as far as this movie goes, I don't think it looks that good. It looks like generic action movie. The CGI scenes are obvious. The storyline doesn't look particularly interesting. I don't know. It looked kind of boring. Marlon, thank you, Hate Camel. Now he wants works. He's going to get along. Yep, there's a lot of going along to getting along these days. And Larry Hama is really eager to just crap over his past writing, probably because he wrote military characters. That's what he's best known for. Even though he's written a lot of really good stuff over the years, he's fallen into the same trap a lot of people are, where they're just trying to shit the bed because that's what everybody's doing. But the other main complaint I have with the movie is that Snake Eyes isn't in his costume. So it's an origin story, I understand that, but I don't care about this actor. First of all, he's not Snake Eyes, because Snake Eyes is a blonde dude with a disfigured face. And second of all, I thought when I first saw the trailer for the movie that it was Shang-Chi, because the action scenes looked all equally dull and unoriginal. They looked like generic action scenes. There was nothing there to make those movies stand out from each other for the first 30 seconds of the trailers. So if you're just kind of glancing at it, you're going to get them mixed up because they're very similar looking. And that goes to the laziness of filmmaking these days. There's a lot of reliance on CGI. A lot of these guys that are in the movies don't actually know martial arts or don't even take any training. So it just looks boring. And I don't want to see either one of these movies. They're taking two great properties and melting them down into generic martial arts movies from the 70s. Not even good martial arts movies from the 70s, just generic ones. They don't seem to have any real storyline, and there's nothing interesting about them. Say what you will about American Ninja, at least that had a plot. Yeah, it was stupid and the martial arts were garbage, but it was fun because it had a plot. It may not have been a really deep plot, but it looks like it was better than this. So I'll just go back to watching that or some Cynthia Rothrock, Conan, or China O'Brien. Conan O'Brien, whoopsie. Yeah, so I'll watch some China O'Brien or some American Ninja or half a dozen other fun movies from the past that aren't this kind of crap. If I want to watch a cheesy martial arts film, Enter the Dragon still exists. And these look like lazy movies with little plot and no real character development. They just look like generic Asian guy. And it's just pathetic. Shang-Chi's a much more interesting character than what we're seeing in the trailers. And Snake Eyes is a vastly more interesting character in the comics than he's going to be portrayed here. I hated those exosuits, Oki. Yes, an Asian man did direct Brokeback Mountain. I think it was the same guy that did that first Hulk movie. I think. Yeah, spaghetti westerns. Yeah. I do like spaghetti westerns. Rat Viper. Oh, I'll have to check that out. Three Ninjas. No. Evolved. No. Yeah, Ang Lee. Thank you. Hey, Camel's all over it. I am a little scatterbrained today. All right, let's get a couple of Boba Fett articles up here. Hey, Johnny. Beat me to it. Spaghetti westerns are great cheesy movies. Absolutely. Italian horror, same way. I love Italian horror movies. Grew up with them. When I was a kid, we used to watch this channel out of Detroit that would play Chopsaki Theater, and I forget what the name of the horror show was, but that every weekend we'd be at my grandma's house watching these movies. And it was always bad 70s action movies from like China and Japan, just low budget martial arts flicks. Then they'd play an Italian horror movie or some equally low budget Hammer horror production. And then Ultraman and the 60s Batman show. It's a whole afternoon of excitement and fun. And I grew an affinity for low budget movies that way. But even these movies like Snake Eyes and Shang-Chi don't look good by those standards, because those movies weren't trying to be something they're not. They were taking themselves seriously within the context of the film, but they knew they were low-budget films, and it was just fun popcorn entertainment. They weren't trying to be real deep and philosophical like these assholes seem to be trying to do. It's pathetic. Just make the movie based around the characters, and it'll be more fun. How can you prefer Spectre-Man to Ultraman? Sergeant Kabuki Man, NYPD, absolutely. Django Unchained was originally a spaghetti western. Yeah, there were several Django movies. And Sir Graves Ghastly. All right, let's get into some Boba Fett news. Disney and Lego reportedly renamed Boba Fett's iconic Star Wars ship. Now, of course they do, because it's problematic. This is from comicbook.com. Disney reportedly gave a new name to the iconic part of the Star Wars universe. A new report from Jedi News reveals that Lego is now dropping the Slave One moniker from merchandise, instead opting to call the vehicle Boba Fett Starship. So original since Lucas left. According to details, they were revealed at Lego Fan Media Days last month. The decision was made at the instruction of Disney. A new 478-piece set, which showcases the new Boba Fett Starship's name and features minifigures of Boba Fett and the Mandalorian, will be available in August. We're not calling it Slave One anymore, Lego Star Wars lead designer Michael Lee Stackwell revealed. This is Boba Fett Starship. Well, does he have a name for it? It's Boba Fett Starship. Hey, Boba, what's the name of your ship? This is my spaceship, Boba Fett Starship. This is dumb. Everybody is dropping the Slave One name. Lego Star Wars design director Jens Krovold Fredrickson added, it's probably not something which has been announced publicly, but it's just something that Disney doesn't want to use anymore. Because Disney's a bunch of vaginas. While the name change is yet to be confirmed or addressed by Disney, some have begun to speculate that it could be in preparation for the Book of Boba Fett, a live-action TV series that is set to debut on Disney Plus later this year, which is not a kid's show. There's a chance that the name change on Boba Fett-related merchandise could be to remove an association to the more common connotation to the word slave, particularly when tied to the history of African Americans being enslaved in the United States, which relates to a planet in the long, long ago in the far, far away. How does this relate to anything in the Star Wars universe? Following the Black Lives Matter protests last summer, certain industries began to phase out slave and master and other related terminology from their work. This also won't be the first time that Star Wars phased out an aspect of the franchise that was potentially problematic ties to slavery, as Leia Organa's Slave Leia costume from Return of the Jedi was retired from merchandise after fans acknowledged its sexist and objectifying roots. Fans didn't do that, assholes did. The father who flipped out about it, what am I going to tell my kid about why she's in that outfit? Tell them there's a giant slug captured me and forced me to wear that stupid outfit, and then I killed him because I didn't like it, Carrie Fisher, who portrayed Leia, said in a 2015 interview. And then I took it off backstage. Yeah, good for her. That's exactly what she should have said. Yeah, she was a slave. She rebelled and fought with her oppressor and killed him. Yes. Wow. You don't want that message out there? Interesting, Disney. Very interesting. There's also the chance that the name change is just to make the ship more recognizable to general audiences. How? Especially as the Book of Boba Fett will help make the character even more of a household name. And it's supposed to debut later this year. How would generically calling it Boba Fett Starship be more recognizable than calling it Slave One? That's fucking dumb. But wait, there's more. Boba Fett actor outraged at Slave One ship rename. I'm coming for you, Disney execs, he says. This is from Newsweek. The actor who played Boba Fett in Star Wars has slammed Disney for changing the name of the character's spaceship, Slave One, in its Lego merchandise. This is not Jeremy Bullock. Mark Anthony Austin has criticized the company for renaming the ship for new Lego toys. My ship will forever be Slave One. Nothing, not even hashtag Disney, can or will change that. This is the way, tweeted Austin on June 28th. Good for him. Screen Rant reports that Star Wars affiliated logo merchandise will be renamed for an upcoming Boba Fett playset. It's going to be called Boba Fett Starship. We just covered that. Star Wars fan website jetting. Okay, we're just going to repeat everything. His colleague, blah, 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 we just read that. Newsweek reached out to Disney for comment. Of course, good luck with that. Austin played Fett in the special edition of Star Wars A New Hope and is quite unhappy with Star Wars' new parent company, Disney, messing with canonical elements of the beloved franchise. He reshot some extra scenes that were added to New Hope that were it was played by a different actor originally. So there was some additional footage and stuff that he was in. He blasted the name change in a number of tweets on Monday, with another one reading, "Wars sounds harsh," says the hashtag Disney. "Let's change the franchise name to Star Disputes." Oh, that's funny. Disney has been striving to acknowledge insensitive cultural depictions in its works for some time now. Yeah, which is why they're all failing. Streaming platform Disney Plus now has restrictions on classic films such as Dumbo, Peter Pan, and the Aristocats because they contain racist and culturally insensitive depictions, according to some. Other titles with content warnings include Swiss Family Robinson, Fantasia, The Jungle Book, and Lady and the Tramp. Disney explains this move on its Stories Matter website, where it says that the restrictions are part of efforts to review its library and add advisories to content that include negative depictions or mistreatment of people or cultures. However, instead of just removing titles with offensive material, Disney says it seeks an opportunity to spark conversation and open dialogue on history that affects all of us. We want to acknowledge that some communities have been erased, forgotten altogether, and we're committed to giving voices to their stories as well. Then why is Song of the South vaulted? If you want to start conversations and open dialogue, why is Song of the South not being released on Disney Plus? Why has it been vaulted for 30 years? And why are you changing the name of the spaceship of a bounty hunter from Slave One? He's not a good guy. He's a bounty hunter, and he's killed lots of people. He was a bad guy in the original trilogy. I don't understand why you're doing that if you're trying to spark a conversation. Is it just for sales and stuff? Because this isn't going to help. You know who buys most of these toys? Middle-aged men. They're going to buy them for their kids and themselves. So this is dumb, and it's embarrassingly dumb. Disney, you stop being hypocrites. If you want to make real money, treat your fans like what they should be treated, with respect, instead of like you're an asshole. You're not my dad, Disney, as much as you think you might be. That actually pissed me off a little more than it probably should have, but I'm just getting tired of them tinkering with everything. Oh, thank you, Tall Person, for the donation. Hi! Can't watch now. We'll watch in full later. Happy Comic Sans Day. Yes, the font. Whoa, awesome. A happy Comic Sans Day to you, too. And thanks for the donation, and hopefully you enjoy the stream later. Why are we making a bad guy nicer? I don't know. Disney has that habit. They want to make everybody like they're not actually evil. They're just misunderstood. It's just lazy moral relativism that they got to slap together to try and sell product. I don't know why they're doing this. This is dumb and it's lazy. And if they really want to start conversations and not erase the past, then leave it alone. But again, the ultimate point of this is that they've been notorious for being hypocrites on this front. They're erasing all of us, the Song of the South stuff that they can, including one of the rides they redid or are redoing, getting rid of all the Brer Rabbit and characters like that, even though those folk tales have been around for 100 years. Look, I understand you don't like Chandler's book, but you did a movie about it, Song of the South. So why is that in the vault if you're really interested in sparking conversations? It's appalling. Yeah, the Chinese imprisoning the Uyghurs. They're not evil. They're just misunderstood. Yeah, well, they did thank the local government there for letting them film near that camp. So, whatever. Fuck them. Duck Dog, he wasn't actually an anti-Semite. That was propaganda put out to smear him when he tattled on some commies. As far as racist goes, I don't know about that. What are we seriously? I like that ride. Yeah, I've never been down to Disney. And I don't have any reason to go now. Plus, they're raising prices like crazy. So I wouldn't be able to afford it. It's like $6,000 to go to Disney World if you got a family. And yeah, they're destroying everything they can get their hands on because they've decided what you can and cannot like. Thanks, Disney. Douchebags. All right, let's talk some cultists. This is from CBR. Smallville actress Allison Mack expresses regret for sex cult crimes prior to sentencing. So it's a long way down from Smallville. Allison Mack, former Smallville star, has addressed in a letter to those hurt by her involvement in a sex trafficking cult ahead of her sentencing. A letter from Mack included with the sentencing guideline recommendations given by her attorneys, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Mack apologized to those who had been harmed by her actions that she took in association with cult leader Keith Raniere, saying, I threw myself into the teachings of Keith Raniere with everything I had. I believed wholeheartedly that his mentorship was leading me to a better, more enlightened version of myself. I devoted my loyalty, my resources, and ultimately my life to him. And you had a lot of sex, I bet. Raniere was previously found guilty of charges of sex trafficking, conspiracy, and possession of child naughty stuff. The cult operated using Nixium, pronounced Nexium, whatever, as a front, claiming to aid alongside fellow Smallville alum Kristen Kruk, who left shortly thereafter, and was allegedly tasked with recruiting new sex slaves for Raniere. Several former members testified to witnessing women being branded with Raniere's initials in a mock dungeon and being forced to engage in sex acts. In 2018, Raniere and Mack were arrested by the FBI alongside several other Nexium members. Mack pleaded guilty to charges of sex trafficking, conspiracy, and forced labor. She was also accused of money laundering and identity fraud, and charges of racketeering and racketeering conspiracy were later added. Mack's letter stated, this was the biggest mistake and regret of my life, and professed a dedication to making amends and becoming more compassionate. I'm sorry to those of you that I brought into Nexium, she wrote. I am sorry I ever exposed you to the nefarious and emotionally abusive schemes of a twisted man. I am sorry that I encouraged you to use your resources to participate in something that was ultimately so ugly. I do not take lightly the responsibility I have in the lives of those I love, and I feel a heavy weight of guilt for having misused your trust and leading you down a negative path. She even talks like a cult member. So, while this guy got like 120 years sentence, the sentencing she got was 3 years. She'll probably be out in 6 months. So she came out ahead. She helped brand people, helped people end up having sex with this guy, whether they wanted to or not. Branding them is a big one for me. Tricking them into having sex, giving up their money, all these other things that she was involved in, and she got a lousy 3 years. That should tell you the power of being a woman and a celebrity in modern society. She's always a victim. She has no power of her own to make these decisions. What a load of shit. She got off very light for all the lives that she destroyed, and I don't think she's actually that regretful of it. Maybe she was brainwashed, but maybe she wasn't. So time will tell what happens with that, but it's pretty messed up. Branding is important. If I ever made a sex cult, it would be a fun one, and I hope people join and stay willingly. Yeah, exactly, Evolved Potato. Oh, he got 110 years. My bad. Thank you, Monkey. It's almost like the pay gap. Yeah. Where's the equality there? Huh, Judge? Where's the equality now? I like how there's always like, we need more female CEOs, yet my garbage people are all men. I have never seen a female garbage collector, come to think of it. Yeah, now she can make women in prison films. I don't know if she's a fake blonde or not. Probably. She looks like a peroxide blonde. And that was an old photo. She looks a little bit rougher now. Although I'd probably bang it out with her. I'm not proud. Kristen Kruk, the chick that played Lana Lang, she was way hot. I had such a crush on her when that show was on. Equality and Sentencing Act. Yeah, that'd be nice. Good luck with that. All right, let's talk some WandaVision. This was an interesting article. Oops. Marvel changed WandaVision's post-credits scene and everyone's talking about it. This is from BGR. I haven't heard anyone talk about this. So I don't know who they're talking to that is talking about this. Probably the other two people in their office. Hey, I'm Vision. The post-credit scene is a staple of Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Marvel movies feature at least one extra scene during the credits, which usually teases new movies and shows, providing hooks between the various adventures in the MCU. Avengers Endgame is a notable exception. But that's only because the film delivered the finale of the Infinity Saga. With the okay, we're just gonna move on. This is boring. All right. The most exciting end credits scene was at the end of episode 9, when the credits scene possibly delivering a direct link to the film of Doctor Strange, where we expect to see Elizabeth Olsen next. Elizabeth Olsen. The credits scene included several exciting details, although they lacked the character we wanted to see the most in that episode. However, Marvel has quietly altered one of the final credits scene, with fans having spotted the addition of what might be a significant character. Before we show you the changes, I'll remind you that spoilers follow. I actually, when I read this and didn't archive it, because this isn't the archive, I couldn't find a link. They said there's a link there. I couldn't find one. So that was a little weird. When WandaVision episode 9 first aired, it featured 2 post-credit scenes. One shows us Monica Rambeau meeting a Skrull, which is an obvious tie-in to the Marvels and other MCU Phase 4 films and TV series that might feature the alien race, like Secret Invasion. The second one is the one we cared about the most. We see Wanda teaching herself magic from the Darkhold. Oh yeah, spoiler alert. In a way that reminds us how Stephen Strange, Benedict Cumberbatch, learned magic in Doctor Strange. It's during these scenes that we hear a variation of the Strange theme. And we see Wanda hearing voices of one of her boys crying for help. Some fans speculate it's a scene that a villain might show up in Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness. Now, in the comics, the boys were originally created by Mephisto. So that's what they were all kind of theorizing that Mephisto was going to be in the show. And of course, the writer had no idea who that was, so we didn't get that. We already know that Olsen has shot extensive scenes for Strange 2, with rumors going so far as claiming she might be one of the film's anti-heroes. What the scene did not deliver was the highly anticipated meeting between Strange and Wanda. Strange was rumored to appear in the finale, but we know that Marvel scrapped plans to have Cumberbatch show up in the series. The fact that no Avenger arrives on the scene to help deal with Wanda's problem is one of the biggest gripes with the WandaVision plot, but I digress. Well, what are you talking about? Monica Rambeau was there. In the Wanda post-credits scene, the Marvel altered, making 3 key changes compared to the version initially released on Disney+. Not 1, but 2 Redditors discovered the scene's edits that are quite significant. First of all, you're diving into Reddit. You couldn't watch it yourself. First of all, Marvel added a silhouette figure floating through the forest toward Wanda's cabin in the woods. There's clips on the internet. The detail is intentional, and it's something we did not see in the first version of the scene. Murphy's Multiverse confirms that the WandaVision finale's second post-credit scene was updated with the detail, speculating that it might be Doctor Strange floating toward the mountain. I doubt that. Why would he choose to make his entry this way rather than using his sparkly magic thingy isn't clear, or his flying cape? And if it's not Strange, who could that be? The second thing that Marvel changed is the terrain. The mountains and forest populating it look different. The change is likely meant to meet Marvel's need in a future film, like Multiverse of Madness. We expect a version of this scene to play out in the movie. The third change concerns the actual credits. In the updated version, Marvel lists Michael Giacchino, the composer of the original Strange score, for the modified Strange theme that plays during the second credits scene. Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness launches March 25th. I thought this was interesting because it's rare that they tinker with an end credit scene. I've never actually heard of that, where they're adding stuff and changing the background. So that seemed a little weird to me. And it probably relates to whatever's happening in the Loki show that's going to lead to the Multiverse of Madness. So I thought that was a little factoid you guys might enjoy knowing. It seems like very trivial, minor changes, but it might be something more to it. The silhouette was confirmed as intentional. It was an error with the CG. Oh, whoopsie. Whoopsie. Well, I thought it was interesting. Thought it might be worth looking at. So let's get into the really annoying shit now. So let's talk about TSR. I'm jumping all over the place today. Now, TSR Games is back. And they are being run by the son of the original founder of TSR. This is TSR Games. TSR Inc. was sold by Gary Gygax to Wizards of the Coast a long, long time ago, or whoever was actually owning TSR at the time. I don't think it was Gygax. But Gygax's son founded TSR Games. And now, here we have an article from BOLS, which is belloflostsouls.net. RPG. TSR invokes Satanic Panic, Origin Games, and Gamma issue bans. So they've been banned from TSR and now Origins. So let's get into this. The TSR Games social media storm continues to brew as TSR Games invokes the Satanic Panic. They're probably not wrong. And Origins Games and Gamma make strong statements. Tim Kask, veteran tabletop role-playing game designer, characterized the online controversy surrounding TSR Games and its creator as the shitstorm in Lake Geneva. And that storm shows little sign of abating as TSR Games evokes the Satanic Panic in defense of the recent pushback they've had, as creators and community members and fans hold them accountable for statements they've made. Jesus, learn how sentences work. That is a run-on. So here's a tweet. Today we're experiencing in recent days is very reminiscent of another moment in TSR history. Who recalls the Satanic Panic? Ends with some people, even today, still believe that tabletop RPGs and D&D are in fact evil. That's not wrong. This references the infamous Satanic Panic of the 1980s when Dungeons & Dragons and a number of other media were held up as a gateway to Satanism. You can read more about it right here. In fact, there's a link here if you really want to read it. The key difference here is that one was a furor over satanic connections, and the other, a community asking for accountability and clarification over statements that are on record, even if the offending tweets have since been deleted. And this has been going on for like a little over a week. TSR tweeted, if you don't like Gary Gygax, you probably shouldn't play D&D, but we hear Milton Bradley has a really good guy. You might like his Vice versus Virtue games. Then Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum tweeted, we here at TSR would like to invite you to our world of imagination. That is exactly what it is. We come here to escape real-world realities. We have no room at our games table for real-world issues. We feel this would only water down or take away from major real-life issues. Since the online woke push to derail TSR, thank you. The woke sales are up. Thank you, the woke. Sales are up. Yeah, I don't really see much wrong with this crap, but people are taking this as being istophobic. For clarity, though, it's just not the fans or players of the game. It's the industry that's taking notice as well. Origins and Gamma, the Game Manufacturing Association, have stated that TSR will not be welcome at their events, which include one of the biggest gaming conventions and an expo that gathers together industry professionals. These are key to the success of many tabletop publishing entity, which presents a challenge for the recently reborn TSR Games. Oh, no gatekeeping at all here. And this is Origin's tweet here from June 28th. We are aware of the appalling statements published by TSR Games and their founder. Gamma does not condone nor agree with any part of it. We pride ourselves on supporting and promoting inclusivity always. Our motto is a game at every table, a table for everyone. Transphobia, racism, and sexism will not be tolerated. That means that TSR is not welcome at Origins Game Fair, Gamma Expo, or any event affiliated with our organization. This comes shortly after Gen Con released a similar statement on June 26th. Gen Con tweeted, Gen Con is not associated with TSR Games and we do not support their recent statements. While the foundation of Gen Con is tied to the history of tabletop RPGs, our goal is to build off the good, acknowledging the bad, and work toward a present free of racism, misogyny, and homophobia. Which makes a whirlwind week for the company, which only last week announced a big return with Giantland Games, an accompanying theme park, and a new version of Star Frontiers. A new version of Star Frontiers I will absolutely buy. That was one of the coolest games when I was a kid. And I'm interested in their Giantlands game. It's like $75 though. So, yeah, it's been a tough week for TSR Games, but you know what? The stuff they said was fairly innocuous. They don't want the real world infringing on their games. And everybody read that as some sort of an istophobia nonsense. I don't think they give a shit if you're gay, straight, purple, trans, whatever. They don't seem to actually care about that. They just want escapism. And you can't have that anymore because they've deemed it such. So they've ginned up this hate mob against them, calling them racist, sexist, istophobes, all that. And it seems to be taking hold, much like a moral panic would. I'm really appalled by a lot of this. It's really horrifying to see. But I think a lot of this is stirred up by Wizards of the Coast because they're worried that TSR is going to bring back a lot of the old gamers that they've pushed away. Instead of trying to force them to buy their product anyway, they're hoping to crush TSR so they can't get off the ground. And this makes me not want to go to Origins. And Origins, I'm in the state where Origins is usually held. I've been to Origins a dozen times easily before it got real big, especially when it was way cooler. Ever since it became very corporate, it's been overpriced and not as fun. And not as many people actually selling their new games. A lot of the up-and-comers aren't there anymore, which really sucks. I was interviewed with Gygax for an article about the connection between heavy metal and D&D. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, D&D should have a heavy metal soundtrack. Look, escapism comes in a lot of forms, and they don't like the form this is taking, so they have to destroy it. They're trying to destroy anything they don't like. I don't think Gygax was a bigot. If he was, that was him. He was born a long time ago. He made the game back in the 70s, for God's sake. It wasn't satanic, and heavy metal kind of took the veneer of that, and there are probably some satanic bands out there. I know a lot of the black metal bands overseas, like in Sweden and stuff like that, they're real into that imagery. But who cares? If somebody wants to be a Satanist, they got a right to do that too. You want to be a istophobe and play a game, you can do that. Nobody's stopping you. It's I don't know why they're trying to do that. Have their own mini convention. Yeah. They've turned Gary Gygax's home into a museum where you can pay a membership fee to go game at the house where Gygax started playing D&D. That's pretty badass and probably going to be difficult to pull off. But I hope they do it because if you're an old school fan, the new game stuff is completely different from what you probably remember. They've gotten rid of a lot of stuff. They're getting rid of the redoing, I should say, the orcs because for some reason, somebody decided that those equal black people. I don't get it because they're corrupted elves in Tolkien lore. So I don't know what the hell they're doing. Where the modern D&D is the Wayans brothers. Just see the first D&D film. Yeah, right back to the Wayans brothers. Not the funny ones either, but the leftovers. Yeah, it's almost all an act for shock. Yeah, it's it's a veneer. You're going to a show, and a show you expect to have entertainment. There's a certain level of theater involved in putting on a metal show, and you know it's kind of like a modern opera. You know, opera people dressed in funny costumes and sang, and you were there for the whole experience of it. Metal has kind of the same thing. They dress. Look at Gwar. They put on an entire show. They would had goofy costumes, or on roller skates, or doing all kinds of crazy shit. So it's part of the sales pitch of it. It's really pathetic that they're going to these extremes to destroy somebody. And that shows me that the industry is worried about TSR coming back because they know their games are inferior to what the original TSR did. And if they're trying to get those old school fans back, the guys in my age group and some of the younger people that just want some escapism, they've got a real shot at doing it, but they need support to do that. And if they can undercut that, it's going to happen. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Viking. I try. And I'm really appalled by this because this really is just a moral panic. They're lying about these guys and twisting what was said to try and dress it up that these guys are evil istophobes. And even that woke article I just read was shitting all over them because they don't agree with them politically. I didn't care who made my gaming products as long as the products were fun. I don't care who makes my music as long as the music's entertaining. I don't want your weirdo political messaging in there. It's fucking disgusting. And this shit is getting old real fast. That's why I still have like my old copies of D&D. Because the new stuff is really lazy. Wheelchair ramps. Come on. It's fucking stupid. I don't play to be the fantasy version of myself. I want to play somebody else. I want to get away from my life. Outcasts hobbies. We used to be freaks and weirdos for a reason. Leave us alone. Yeah, this stuff is just getting worse and worse. They're destroying everything that we like. And if you like stuff like the old school D&D, I would really recommend looking into what TSR is doing and see if it's for you. Because if they're re-releasing Star Frontiers, I will absolutely buy that. Absolutely. And if TSR, if you're listening right now, re-release Cyborg Commando. Just update the rules a little bit, tighten that shit up. I would love to get a new copy of that. I loved that game. Cyborg Commando and Star Frontiers are two of my favorite old school games. And I would love to see those brought back. Oh, all in on Star Frontiers 2. Yeah, I would just buy it for the nostalgia of reading it. I loved that game. I would just buy it to read the books. So if you could bring back Cyborg Commando 2, oh man, oh my god, I would totally buy that. $50 right on the table. I would sell some plasma for that. All right, let's get into something that's going to make me a little less angry. Just shitting on my childhood all the time is fucking annoying. New Alien TV series will be class warfare with Xenomorphs. And this comes to us from Vanity Fair. Showrunner Noah Hawley explains that what you need to know about the upcoming FX show and his latest novel, Anthem. This is from July 1st. Oh, don't see this stuff here? This is, oh, no, can't have that. No. So, look, they're colonizing and oppressing this cat. Ugh. Eat the rich? That's not a bad premise for the new iteration of Alien, but most of the time the series is about hyper-predatory extraterrestrials that's focused on the working-class heroes. Ridley Scott's 1979 original focused on cosmic merchant marines who discover wreckage with deadly cargo aboard, while James Cameron's 1986 sequel, Aliens, was about actual marines whose rescue mission turns into an operation to capture the fiends. What did you think, like, you want Bill Gates wrestling a xenomorph? I don't. Okay. They were doing it, the second movie, at the behest of Weyland-Yutani. So, who do they think was paying for that mission? Whether it's David Fincher's prison colony in the third movie or the Mercenaries of 1997's fourth movie from director Jean-Pierre Jeunet, or whatever, it's always the workers and the underclass facing the acidic wrath of the creatures. Maybe there's a capitalism metaphor inherent in the series. Or we could just ignore the fact that Prometheus had Weyland-Yutani in it. Now a new Fox TV series based on the franchise is in the works from Fargo showrunner Noah Hawley, who says it's about time the facehuggers and Xenomorphs sink their claws into the white-collar executives who've been responsible for sending so many employees to their doom. You're right, none of those people had any choice in the matter. In a conversation about the symbolism of Season 4 of Fargo, Hawley offered an update on the Alien series, as well as his new novel, Anthem. The show, however, will have to wait a little while since the crush of new productions after the pandemic has consumed all of Hollywood's resources. How appropriate. Vanity Fair. What's next for you? Is there a Season 5 in the works for Fargo? Noah. Yeah, I think so. I don't have it yet. I have pieces that will have to survive. They're not connected. I think it would be good to create an ending and deliberately come to something, knowing it's the last one, and see how one might wrap up this anthology. What's next for me, it looks like, is the Alien series for FX, taking on that franchise and those amazing films by Ridley Scott and James Cameron and David Fincher. Notice he didn't mention the fourth movie. There are great monster movies, but they're just not monster movies. They're about humanity trapped between our primordial parasitic past and our artificial intelligence future. And they're both trying to kill us. Here you have human beings, and they can't go forward and they can't go back. So that's what I find interesting. That's an interesting view. Where are you in the process? I've written a couple of scripts, the first two scripts, and we're looking into making them next spring. When you get something on this level of visual effects, it's a lot of preparation that has to go into it. What's really illuminating to see is that the entire film industry had to take a year off, and they're now trying to jam 2 years of production into 1 year. So it's very hard to look on planet Earth and see where you might make something interesting or make something in the next 6 months. Everyone's racing to make up for lost time, so I figure let that bubble burst a little bit, and we'll do it right. Is there anything else you can tell us, share about it? Is that part of the Ridley story, or will it be original characters in different places? She's one of the great characters of all time, and I think the story has been told perfectly, and I don't want to mess with it. It's a story that's set on Earth also. The alien stories are always trapped in a prison, trapped in a spaceship. I thought it'd be interesting to open it up a little bit so the stakes of what happens if you can't contain it are more immediate. Well, the whole sense of trapped is kind of the part of the drama of it. So you're like, let's just get rid of that part. Deadly things that can't be contained and the whole world at risk sounds relevant to the past year. On some level, it's also a story about inequality. You know, one of the things that I love about the first movie is how the 70s a movie is. And how it's really that blue-collar space trucker world in which Yafet Kodo and Harry Dean Stanton are basically waiting for Godot. They're like Samuel Beckett's characters, ordered to go to a place by a faceless, nameless corporation. The second movie is such an 80s movie, but it's all about grunts. Paul Reiser's middle management at best, so it's the story of people you send to do the dirty work. Yeah, so what? More people can relate to being on the ground doing the dirty work than they can being the rich upper class. How does that relate to your series? In mine, you're going to see the people who are sending them. So you will see what happens when the inequality we are struggling with now is resolved. If we as a society can't figure out how to prop each other up and spread the wealth, then what's going to happen to us? There's that great Sigourney Weaver line to Paul Reiser where she says, I don't know which species is worst. At least they don't fuck each other over for a percentage. I don't care about his new book. All right, so yeah, we're gonna get some class warfare and eat the rich. Oh yay, that's never been done before. So I could pretty well take off this series off my viewing list of things that I was looking forward to, because I don't need yet another class warfare drama from some socialist lunatic that's gonna crap all over everything. BG, I need to address what you said. about the D&D film. I refuse to watch that movie ever again because of the beholder that fetches a ball like a dog. That movie was stupid. And for me, that's saying something because I like stupid movies, but that movie was stupid. We could just ignore Prometheus. Apparently, any news out of Hollywood can be boiled down to people who don't understand the material or put in charge. You're not wrong. Yeah, this is just lazy. They're setting it on Earth because it's cheaper. Thank you, Evolved Potato, for the donation. I've been looking at more at Walmart fantasy or Walmart. Jeez, I've been looking more at Warhammer Fantasy role-playing game than D&D these days. Plus, second edition is in free PDFs online. Looking to trick, threaten, or force my friends into it in the lore, so I have more people to talk about. Already got into some 40K. Yeah, the Warhammer Fantasy game was pretty cool. I played it the first edition of it years and years ago, a couple times. I was always more of a second edition D&D guy, but that's what I kind of grew up with, and that's what most people had access to. There weren't many people that had the fantasy RPG book or could get it. Most stores won't order it, but it's a pretty cool setting, and there's a lot of cool stuff to it. So yeah, good luck, man. Hopefully you can find some people into it. But I appreciate the donation. Gotta love that those bitch the loudest about class inequality are always rich and never donate their money to the poor. Yep. This guy's a hypocrite. He's super wealthy and he's not doing anything to help poor people. He's just trying to pander. It's lazy. He only had basic. We had when I was a little kid, we had the little box sets. My brother had them, like the red box and the other ones that followed. Red box was the only one I really had access to. That was great. I loved the D&D back then, man. It was simple enough that anyone could play, and you Beholder, Big Trouble in Little China. Yeah, Big Trouble in Little China is a great movie, and that was like a baby Beholder. But I love that movie. That is such a bizarre, twisted movie. All right, let's get into the two of the best articles I saved for last. I know some people have left, and that's on them because they're missing Teen Vogue telling us D&D Renaissance could usher in more accessibility, inclusivity in tabletop role-playing fandom. This is from their fan service column, I believe. This is by Stitch, not Lilo, but Stitch, and from June 25th. We're in the middle of a tabletop role-playing game renaissance. That's a stretch. While streamed video and podcast campaigns for Dungeons & Dragons have been around for a hot minute, with well-known shows like Critical Role and The Adventure Zone dating back to 2015 and 2014 respectively, the chaos and stress of 2020 has seemed to invigorate tabletop gaming and those related fandoms as the sources of escapism. Tabletop RPG games have always brought people together through collaborative storytelling and the way that players work in groups to defeat bosses. Prior to 2020, they were a way for people to connect with each other and have fun, whether it's part of an active campaign with local friends or by joining the fandom for streaming a show hosted by celebrities. With the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, how we engage with these games and the fandom for long-running campaigns has shifted to accommodate the ways that the world has changed and now we're changing as a result. This means that many people are seeing and challenging how these fandoms and canons work for the first time, with streamers, podcasters, and a new generation of fans coming together to make these spaces more accessible than they were in the past. Across decades, the different tabletop communities and canons have always worked in a way that conveniently excluded marginalized people. In what way? Gatekeeping, the form of knowledge tests from other players, or the insistence that black characters can't exist in D&D outside of the Drow, was a frequent barrier to new players. Bullshit. I've never heard that before. I gamed for about 20 years and never saw anybody restricted from the skin tone of their characters or barriers for new players through knowledge tests. People might ask you if you know how to play. That's different. They'd be like, "What? Do you know how to play?" Because they need to know if they need to explain rule sets to you. For years, many parts of the tabletop RPG community took a no girls allowed approach to setting up their campaign, making it difficult for many girls and women to even believe there was a chance for them to play in these spaces until streaming opened the door to what? Wide, widely visible female players. That point of view has been reinforced in the demographics pop culture version of these games. It shows like Stranger Things and The Big Bang Theory. Their diehard D&D fans are depicted as geeky men and boys because that's largely the demographic it appeals to. Not many women want to play the game. That's not the same as keeping them out. Most female players that I've seen are usually there because their boyfriends are there, or they just want to play the game. There aren't that many female gamers. There's a lot more now than there were 30 years ago, sure, but there have never been that many historically. They just weren't that interested in it. It's never been intentionally to keep them out, because every time a girl sits down at the table, the guys get a little weird about it, and they're like, "Oh, hi, how you doing?" They're eager to have them there. Some guys aren't comfortable. I knew a dude that was really afraid of women, and he would just shut down. He was just so uncomfortable, a borderline phobia, and it was fun because we took him to a strip club. But that was a whole other story. I don't understand this alleged gatekeeping. I've never seen it in all my years of probably 30 different groups that I've gamed with, easily over that 20 plus years of gaming. It's ridiculous. There were only ever a handful of women that wanted to play. I can only imagine what my relationship with D&D would look like today if I'd grown up with Twitch and YouTube and seen this sort of representation exemplified. The Mary Sue editor, Valerie Kane, pointed out back in 2018, I grew up surrounded by a D&D, but in a weird turn, it wasn't until I visited Wizards of the Coast I actually played my first game. Well, that's on you. There's plenty of people that would play with you. While gaming communities and fandoms were a significant portion of the reason why marginalized players couldn't get into these games, bullshit, the canon served up its own roadblocks. In June 2020, Dungeons & Dragons publisher Wizards of the Coast posted a diversity statement acknowledging the racist histories behind several of their popular character types, focusing specifically on orcs and the drow, and how they had already taken steps to rectify their franchise's racist past, even though the game more accessible make the game more accessible for players. But is that enough? Again, orcs are corrupted creatures. They're evil creations. The drow are evil as well. It's got nothing to do with their skin tone. They have dark skin to blend into the darkness because they live in the Underdark. And they are evil creatures. They are not nice people. It's not because they're considered black by some modern wokest racist. That's fucking dumb. I had the opportunity to speak with Multitude CEO Amanda McLaughlin and head of creative Eric Silver about their D&D podcast, Join the Party, and its accessibility in gaming podcast, and shared their thoughts and fraught and frequently racist history of D&D that stems from the fantasy genre itself. Oh, so all of fantasy is racist now too. Look, D&D is based off of largely a lot of Tolkien influence, which is based off of medieval European history and the creatures therein. They have a book called Oriental Adventures. I know they don't call it that anymore. That was all about Japanese type setting where you could play samurai. That seems pretty inclusive, even though Oriental's a rug and Asian probably would have been more appropriate. But for the time that it came out, Oriental was not an offensive term per se. This is rewriting of the past. They shared the thoughts of blah, blah, blah. Starting with the dwarves, the thing I've written and spoken about, the ingrained anti-Semitism that is just like in a lot of things that we understand from fantasy. Eric said during our conversation in April. The dwarves that Tolkien made, they're just Jews. They're literally Jews like he said they were Jews. They were gruff and stubborn and very miserable in The Hobbit. And then World War II happened. He's like, oh no, they're actually really cool guys. They're still stubborn and miserly, but I still love them. I don't remember dwarves ever being seen as Jews. Wait, are you going with the stereotype that Jews are gold hungry? Well, that's messed up. That sounds like a you problem, weirdo. Dwarves and goblins are portrayed very anti-Semitic stereotypes across much of fantasy media, including D&D and media inspired by the game. Maybe it's because goblins, historically, if you actually were to read, I don't know, like the Wikipedia, goblins were greedy, and they were usually after money, gold. So, yeah, that's why they're portrayed as greedy, and maybe comes across as a stereotype because you see Jewish people as this is very racist of the people talking here. In D&D in the decades of fantasy media, it inspired orcs have often been portrayed as racialized and racist other, pulling heavily from what Helen Young calls colonialist discourses of blackness. In the chapter on orcs in her book, Race and Popular Fantasy Literature Habits of Whiteness. Oh, that doesn't sound biased at all. That's a perfectly reasonable book to check out on race and colonization. Fuck off. This is fucking stupid. I can't read any more of this. I'll drop the link in the chat if you guys want to read it, but I'm done. This is even dumber than what I read of it. This is made up bullshit. Absolutely random. Absolutely made up bullshit. Yeah, I don't get where they're coming from on this. I think this is a bunch of modern progressives looking for something that isn't there and saying, oh, look at this here. No, that's a lot of crap. They're digging. They're really digging. The main goal of the dwarves and the hobbits is to reclaim their homeland and get revenge on the dragon. Yeah. Now, if they're an allegory for the Jews reclaiming their homeland and fighting an evil that stole all their gold, sounds a lot like some Germans in the 40s to me. Yeah, weird. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't read any more of that shit. There's links and everything in the article if you want to go read any of that garbage. But one more D&D article. It's a very kind of put me down a rabbit hole. And it really pissed me off. Oh, sorry about that. Thank you, Rodline, for the donation. I want to be a DM in a wheelchair game. I'd cut them no slack if they can't move around in a dungeon. Too bad. They sit there the entire time unless someone carries them. They wanted real wheelchairs. Now deal with the real world wheelchair problems. Yeah, exactly. They want to create problems that don't exist. People in wheelchairs in the Middle Ages and medieval times in general, like Dark Ages, things like that. Those time periods, people that were crippled typically did not survive. At best, they were beggars or they would be lucking into jobs that they could do. But most of the time, they died. Full of awful things where people that didn't have the luxuries and advancements that we have today had to survive, and if they didn't, they died. It's sad. That's what happens when you can't survive. You die. It's awful, but that doesn't mean that dungeons would be wheelchair accessible. If anything, they'd be full of more traps and pits to protect whatever treasures await in there. That's the whole point, is that life is struggle, and the sooner you accept that, the happier you're going to be in life. Not everything has to cater to you. Yeah, in a world with magic and clerics and heal spells, why would you be crippled other than by choice or lack of funds? Maybe a crippled character's family is going out to a dungeon to try and get the loot to pay for them to get healed, and then that character would join the party. But there's just not a lot of common sense to this. This is people trying to find things. Yeah, Viking. You wouldn't have to try very hard. Just nature itself would end them. They wouldn't get very far. How are you going to cross the mountainous terrain to get to the magic doorway that leads to whatever treasures or dungeon? Or you're going to go fight a dragon in a wheelchair? What are you, retarded? That's not going to happen. Of course, if you're retarded back then, you would have died too. The only wheelchairs were for crippled nobility. Exactly. Even the crippled lower nobility would probably just be left out to die. Yeah. And if they were young enough, they would have been thrown out to the wolves. Become the loot carrier. Yeah, they'd have dumped you and kept the chair for the loot. That's not wrong, correct? No, in one of the recent Wizards of the Coast books, Candlekeep Mysteries, one of the dungeons there is handicap accessible, and they did that on purpose. And we talked about that a while ago and showed you the article with the guys in the miniatures with the guys in wheelchairs. This is more infection by the SJWs to ruin fun, and that's what TSR was coming out against. Was they want to have an escapist game, so you're not playing your real world self. Who wants to do that? That's boring. If I want to play an unemployed loser, I could go outside and participate in the real world. I don't need that kind of pressure. This is fucking dumb. Now, on to the last article that's more D&D related. Sorry, guys. I know this generally try and work more comics stuff into this, but it was a light week for comic news. So, how autism powers my D&D. And this is from Polygon. Oh, kitty cat. Little kitty cat wizard. And this is from last week. In my world, there are flumps that speak with gestures and colors instead of words. Owlbear guardians travel with inexperienced adventurers, and people can evict spiders from their homes with smooth negotiation tactics. It's a world inherently amicable to someone interested in social justice, art, and mythical creatures. This is what all your new modules are going to be from D&D in the next couple years. Guarantee it. It's going to be a fighting gentrification, and there'll be no more weapons. You'll just have to roll to avoid the interactions with evil town guards that are going to kneel on your neck, and you have to evict people or try and protect people that are getting evicted with your words and protest marches. Ugh. Our story takes place on the western coast of Rogun, a country that only exists in my weekly Dungeons & Dragons campaign. In the past year, I've spent countless hours with my friends creating a world that is habitable for my existence. This is narcissism. I needed to create a fantasy world just for me. That's okay. When modern society feels hostile, I can find comfort once a week leading my friends through a narrative where all my quirks fit. Oh, it's all about you, not the group. As a non-binary person with autism, I have plenty of so-called quirks. I'm a daydreamer who often carries a sketchbook to record story ideas, character drawings, and thoughts that I don't always feel safe sharing. Oh, that's quirky and unique. Oh. If I'm overwhelmed, I can stutter or accidentally say thoughts out loud that don't contribute to the conversation, which forces me to clam up and fall silent for the rest of the evening. Because you're socially awkward, too. You can fix that, you know. Fantasy has the incredible ability to accommodate the most unique parts of ourselves and welcome them. However, I never found as much of a home in a fantasy as I did when I started playing D&D. My first character was a halfling death cleric with a mummified squirrel as a familiar. Charisma was her lowest stat, and I loved that she was more comfortable talking to dead people than her friends in the party. Her social weaknesses were vital to her character and served as a place where I could find meaning for my own awkwardness. Okay, I don't care about that. I don't want to hear about your character. Old friends from the old days. I don't want to know about your character. You're weird for oversharing all the traits of your character that I didn't ask about. When players build characters, it's natural for them to exaggerate something about their personalities. Whether you're playing dumb but strong barbarian, a bookish wizard, or an extroverted minstrel, at the end of the day, you've probably created a character who wouldn't likely be considered neurotypical. That's another part about why D&D is so exciting for people with autism. We can see ourselves in it. Fuck escapism, right? After playing for a few weeks, I transitioned quickly from playing to being our group's dungeon master, DM. My friends thought it was a natural progression, as I'm a novelist and writer by trade. Wow, nice flex. However, I don't think any of us realize the validation I get for taking on such a role. Experts have found that my experience as an autistic person playing D&D isn't an isolated incident. Many autism support programs include some measure of role-playing to help develop interpersonal skills. That's true. People with autism often benefit from role-playing The new game, Critical Core, has been designed as a social intervention tool for children and adults with autism. Yep, this has been around for a long time. Role-playing scenarios out with autistic kids and kids with social awkwardness has always been beneficial. That's been known since the 70s. Role-playing games like D&D are valuable for neurodivergent people because they bring structure to a relatively unstructured and chaotic experience. Social interaction. While a quest or dungeon crawl may seem somewhat confusing to a casual viewer, there's a subtle yet solid narrative thread binding the story. That thread is maintained by a trove of rules that govern every scenario. People with autism don't have to worry about misunderstanding sarcasm because an insight check can more or less reveal the speaker's intentions, only if you make it. Better yet, a player doesn't have to worry about being suave or convincing to try and manipulate someone. But while my real-life charisma is low, my tiefling warlock almost always succeeds on his deception rolls. These precise guidelines for social exchanges make D&D almost perfect for building relationships without the confusion of real-world interpersonal dynamics, where vague concepts like subtext and tone reign supreme. Even more importantly, a character-driven narrative helps people with autism explore and celebrate traits that might be harder to see in day-to-day interactions. Speaking face-to-face isn't something I'm particularly great at. I tend to look away as I struggle to maintain eye contact, and when I get tired, I often stutter. As it becomes harder to express myself, I get self-conscious and often shut down. This is all about you, isn't it? However, I can seemingly talk for hours when I'm running a game session. I'm able to follow narrative twists and turns with the agility that I rarely have outside the game, while each session is mentally exhausting, as it's often for neurotypical. Stop using that word. I managed to keep the pace with six other players. These days, when I feel overwhelmed at parties or in loud settings, I remind myself that socializing is a skill I've developed. Why do you have to remind yourself of that? D&D has helped me build an interpersonal toolkit and social stamina that I've never had before. First of all, don't use terms like toolkit and stamina when you're actually talking to people, because it sounds weird. And you know this person is walking up being like, "Hi, I'm new to this cocktail party. My name is whatever. You want to hear about my D&D campaign?" No one wants to hear about that. Unless you're at a D&D convention, nobody cares. That's not to say gaming is without its faults. I'm usually anxious in the hours leading up to a game where the nebulous idea of session prep consumes my thoughts. Okay. Building encounters and puzzles my group may never see is usually more stressful than exciting. Why? You can recycle a lot of that shit. Every time I end a session, I typically believe my group hated it, even though they keep coming back, even after a year of gameplay. Well, obviously they don't hate it then, do they, dummy? And look, session prep is pretty easy. Here's a little cheat sheet. You can have some puzzles or side quests ready for when they diverge from your main thing, and then you just throw that at them. You can recycle those. If they don't find something in a dungeon, you can recycle that into a future dungeon. Boom, done. And you don't have to do this right before the game. You can do this over the course of the week and relieve some of that stress. And then you're not at the last minute scrambling and panicking. And after a while, you get used to things and you can just wing it. Despite the negatives, D&D is one of my favorite activities. However, there's one key benefit that reigns over all else. The thing I love more than creativity, the social practice, and the hilarious moments surrounding the quest for a blue mushroom is that D&D allows me to connect with my friends in a way that I couldn't before I started playing. As a person with autism, the fantasy world in my head is often more exciting than the world my friends live in. Thanks to D&D, I can finally have a way to share that with them. Well, look, I'm glad you have a way to share that with your friends. And yes, autistic people do find some benefit from D&D, and that's awesome. But yeah, Monkey, you're 100% right. This is feel bad for me, but tell me how brave I am. They hate it, but feel sorry for him. Yeah. Me on a different night without telling him. I wouldn't surprise me too much. But look, if you're not having fun in a campaign, don't go. It's a waste of time. And yeah, okay, this person has fun with fantasy stuff. Yeah, go write fantasy novels. You're not going to get better at social interaction without socially interacting. That's what we call a fact. He's the guy Tom Hanks was portraying in Mace's Monsters. Yeah, Purdue the cleric. Yeah, that look, autism and other social awkwardness is difficult to overcome. You're never going to overcome it. You learn to tolerate it and deal with it. Just general social awkwardness, what they're now calling autism, is really just people that aren't good at social interaction and that didn't have a lot of it growing up. Actual autistic people can benefit from games like this, but they're better off playing with people that also need to work on their social interactions, so they're all kind of semi-compelled to do so, and they find more benefit from being around people with similar issues to help each other work through it as like a group therapy thing. That generally should be overseen by somebody that will kind of guide the group, but I suspect this person isn't what we would classically call autistic, but more somebody that's just like quirky and weird. And look how amazing I am with my dyed hair and all my goofy shit because I need attention. I saw the first Masters Eaters trailer. I heard a new one was out. I haven't seen it yet. I'm probably going to watch it after this, though, because it's in my one of my queues there. Seems boring to me. Yeah, succeeding on just a roll seems boring to me. I like where you actually have to be your character, and depending on your argument, you get plus or minus on the roll. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Is it should be fun for people. It should just be. If you want to play a game where it's just rolling dice, play the old Ice Middle Earth role playing game. That is just charts. It was called Chartmaster for a reason. Sounds like an only child. Sounds like somebody that doesn't go outside. I'm gonna have to watch this, aren't I? All right. I'll check it out, Monkey. I'll check it out right after I'm done here. I was putting down D&D pretty naive when I was younger. Yeah, the original D&D show was that cartoon was interesting if you go back and look at it. All right, guys, a minute or so for questions, and we'll wrap it up. If you guys have any questions, let me know. And I want to thank everybody for coming out. I obviously lost a few people from that D&D screed. I'm not against people with autism playing in D&D games, but this person's attention-seeking, playing up whatever limited problems they actually have. So that's really frustrating to me. Chaotic neutral with twisted sense of humor, toss fireball at a paladin with no problem. Yeah, chaotic neutral players I had to ban because it just resulted in total infighting. People would just create characters that were chaotic neutral to smite somebody in revenge for their last character. Oh, thanks, Johnny. So, yeah, I know this was a little more game heavy on the pop culture end of the spectrum, but like I said, there wasn't a lot of comic book news this week. So sorry about that, but a lot of this stuff needs to be addressed. And a couple of these articles I didn't see people covering. I'll catch you later, Monkey. Yeah, so keep an eye on what's going on out there. Things are getting worse from what I've seen, and they're going to destroy D&D more than they already have. And the whole wokest crap with the drow and the orcs is stupid, and Wizards is just running it. Again, they're killing the golden goose. Stranger Things made a resurgence for D&D, and they're going to take that and use it as lecture time. I'm not apologizing for that part, Viking. Enjoy. So yeah, it's really kind of disgusting. But if TSR is going to come out with a role-playing game that caters to old fans that just want fun and escapism, I'm all on board. Those old-time modules have nothing to apologize for. They were goofy fun. They didn't take themselves very seriously, Castle Greyhawk being the ultimate example because the crew of the Enterprise showed up. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks for coming out, everybody. I really appreciate all the donations and all the support you guys give by sticking around and listening to me rant. And hopefully I'll do another stream this weekend about next week's books. I've just been super busy in real life and haven't been able to get to that. But Thank you so much for coming out. It's really appreciated. And we will hopefully see you all on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.